This is the most basic canvas stretching demo using canvas or linen with acrylic gesso. It's the exact same technique for the linen and the canvas, so you can interchange the two.
The first step is to figure out how big you want your surface to be. In this case, we'll be working with a 16 by 12, two 12s, two 16s. These pieces end up fitting together just like a puzzle. You'll slide the triangle into the groove of the corresponding piece to connect the two pieces of the canvas bar.
I'm actually amazed that they fit so well.
It's beautiful, yeah. Before you really want them set in and rigid, you want to piece them all together, I find. Because that way you can make sure that it's not wonky, that everything's a little bit balanced.
So you're not even trying at this point to make it straight. You're just trying to put it together?
Exactly. A lot of good tricks to get this in without use of a level. Something I always did in college was put them in a door frame.
Oh my God, that is so smart!
Right? So if you just like have the door frame, you stick the canvas in and then you wedge it on each side. Two staples into each corner just to firmly adhere it.
Oh, that's funny. You're doing one staple per corner?
Similar to how I staple in the canvas or the watercolor paper, depending. I like to do like one on each side to keep it circled and rotated so it doesn't become balanced.
I do all three at once.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I do, and then I move around. I guess as long as you're not bumping it, that's the important thing.
There's no right or wrong way to do this. There's a right or wrong final product.
Right.
But however you get there, it's totally up to you.
Yeah, as long as you have a nice, smooth surface that's not warped, that doesn't fall apart, you're good.
Yeah.
I think for a small canvas of this size, 2 staples is enough.
Totally.
But sometimes if it's a little bit bigger, maybe I'll do 3. I would also say, if you look at the staples, do you see how they're not perfectly flush with the stretcher bar? I actually like doing it that way because if I decide to take this apart later, these are easier to pull out.
Oh, yeah.
There's no need to hammer these in and make them perfectly flush.
Measuring out and stretching the canvas is a lot like wrapping like a Christmas present. You want the extra overhang so that you can really grip it and you have a little bit more to work with. It's tempting to use as minimal as you can just to save on the canvas, but really like that extra centimeter or inch you give yourself is really going to make this part a lot easier.
And also, if you were to take this canvas off later, it's so much easier to take off if you have extra canvas.
Oh, absolutely.
So I always err on having too much over rather than too little.
So to start, I always eyeball it, usually like, between 2 to 3 inches. So now that I've roughly measured out, approximately the extra canvas that I'll need, I can go ahead and cut.
You just eyeball it? You don't bother to draw a line?
I just eyeball it. So let's talk about canvas pliers. These are nice wide ones from Frederick's, and you want to grip the canvas not too tightly, nor too loosely either, and make sure you have a nice tug to get it nice and taut. And
technically speaking, you could do this with your hands.
Oh yeah, and actually something this size, it actually took me some getting used to use canvas pliers for it because this is such a manageable size. Pretty much anything bigger than this, I would use pliers without thinking.
Well, once you've done a few and you've gotten your fingers really raw, it makes you want to use the canvas pliers. I would just say there's different sizes of canvas pliers, like this size that I have. This is not remotely as wide as the Frederick's pliers, so this is a very different grip.
Yeah, but they work just as well. Like I used some like these like all through school, and it's the same principle, just the nice grip, nice tug. It just makes it easier for you, regardless of the size.
To me, this pair of canvas pliers has sentimental value because I bought it when I was 16.
Yeah.
And it's like a pair of old jeans, and it's actually sort of a crappy pair of pliers, but I'm just used to it.
The first thing you do is you put one staple in the middle on each side. And for the first fold over, you don't even need to use the pliers. Don't worry about stretching it super tightly. Find the center there and connect it in. And you always want to do the opposite sides. So you don't want to go in a circle around this because that risks, what can happen is you'll get little like puckers in the corners if this part isn't done correctly.
Now, what about this? Because this piece of canvas is really wrinkled. Is that going to be a problem in terms of getting like a really smooth surface?
Not a bit. In a way, I think the wrinkles kind of help because once the wrinkles are all smoothed out, that's how you know you've stretched it properly.
Oh. But wait a minute, if I look at your canvas, you stretched so much here, I don't think you're going to have enough on this side.
Right. Oh my God, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to make sure you really are stretching it appropriately. And now this, you can, don't use a palette knife. Come on, what are you thinking? Just pull it out with your hand.
Oh, come on. So once you check to make sure you have canvas enough on both sides of it, you'll fold that over, just apply the staple right in the center.
Now, how do you know how hard to pull with the canvas pliers? Like, are you using every muscle in your body, or is it more nuanced than that?
It's a little more nuanced. Like, you definitely want to give it a nice tug. You want it to be taut, like a drum, kind of. But you don't want to get to the point where you're, ripping the canvas or anything like that.
Okay.
So for the last one, pull it taut, hold it in place. Don't staple your thumb.
Have you ever done that?
There we go. I never have.
All right, so now we have the canvas so that we have one staple in the middle of each stretcher bar. And that's what you have to do first.
Yeah, and you have to start this way. And now, essentially, you follow that same framework, but you'll just do like 2 staples on each side, switch to the opposite, 2 staples, until you're at all the corners. So now I've gotten to the corners, I'm ready to fold. And this is the only part that's a little bit different.
Hey, that's exactly how I do it.
Oh, really?
I thought you did it differently.
I mean, there are so many different ways to do it. Like, I've seen people do it. They, for some reason, like the back to look nice and neat. Like
yeah, but
that.
the back doesn't matter.
Exactly, yeah, which is why I'm not worried about the organization of these staples.
Yeah, your staples are really crooked. Mine are nice and neat. Yours are all over the place.
Say, just make it nice, smooth, and folded. And the key is, you see how when the corner's folded, there's no divot or pucker or anything? Once that's there and smooth flat, and you make sure that it looks good on the front, just give it a couple staples in there just to secure it.
So in the end, you end up with this nice diagonal on the corner, and then if you did the job right, you got a nice, clean corner. Let's see. Yeah, I like to do that too. That's pretty good. How many coats of gesso do you do? I do 2. The first one, I always dilute with a lot of water, so it's very thin. And then the second one is nice and thick.
Oh, I usually use 2 as well, but I don't so much do it like light and then thick. I do like 2 coats of about the same consistency, like a little like eggnog thickness.
Oh, I guess so it all evens out between the 2 of us.
Yeah, yeah.
There's lots of different kinds of gesso you can get of different consistencies. This is Frederick's gesso, and it looks a little like cottage cheese. It's very thick. However, I would much prefer to get gesso that is too thick than too thin.
Yeah, and you just dilute it with water. Like in this case, like I just put some water in it and it's a little too wet, so that's why Clara added the extra dollop of the gesso.
What consistency do you like? Is it like pancake batter?
Yeah, pancake batter, thick homemade eggnog, a little wetter than pudding. I want it to kind of drip, but not be liquidy when it drops out. I always start from the center and work my way out. Do you have a preference when you're applying your gesso?
I just put it wherever. I mean, is there a reason why you start from the middle?
I always start from the middle just as kind of like to make sure it has a nice even coat and I can like kind of brush it off.
And I always make sure I'm either in a studio where it doesn't matter or I have like a sheet of plastic where I'm working because it gets on everything. I had a friend in art school who spilled a gallon of gesso onto their living room rug.
Oh no.
It was really bad.
Oh no.
That's the end.
Now that the gesso's all done, it's important to not forget the edges when you're working on it. The key is if something's unframed, the edges will be visible. And so therefore, I always, when I'm painting, paint the edges.
Well, especially for oil painting, if you have any part of the canvas be raw and you get oil paint on the raw canvas, eventually the oil paint will eat through the canvas and then there goes your painting.
It's wild, yeah. And it's not so much of a problem with acrylic because it's plastic based, so it won't consume the canvas.
Do you let the first coat dry overnight or just a few hours?
I let the first coat dry for just a few hours.
Oh, I always do overnight because I get stressed that it's not dry enough. It's probably overkill, but I always do it that way.
Then once you paint the sides, you'll have a little overlap going on the front, so just kind of give those a little smooth. There we go.
Nice.
I love the way that looks. Oh, so clean.
Awesome. So you let the first layer dry, and then you put on another layer, and then you let that dry.
Yeah. So tell me, when you put on the second layer and you say you like the second layer to be thicker, what benefits do you find from that?
I just feel like it's a little bit stronger, a little more substantial.
It's so funny that this is like a difference in how we do it, because it's already hinting at our difference in painting style.
Right,
Like you
right.
said, you paint thickly and you kind of really work the canvas, whereas I paint thinly. I like a lot of things to kind of water down the paint.
You're going to see there's two little notches in the corner. And all you need to do is take the canvas key. Actually, you should do the notch that's below first, because one is below and the other one is above. So you fit the canvas key in like this, and then you take a hammer, and you just hammer it this way. And what the canvas key is doing is it's actually pushing the stretcher bar out a little bit.
Oh,
So it's
cool.
going in that direction, okay? Now, I'm going to put in the other canvas key like this. I'm going to tap. So you want to have the canvas keys inserted like this. You don't want to go too much, because if you do this too much, you could actually, I mean, I've never actually split it before.
But you could,
You
yeah.
could, I guess, if you were really hammering it in super hard. And so if you put the canvas keys, two in each corner, that has then pushed all of the stretcher bars out a little bit, and then it makes it a lot more taut.
Okay.
Because my problem as an art school student is mine were never taught enough, ever. And so when I discovered this, I was like, oh my God, it's like magic. It's nice and tight again. So these are a great solution if you get in that situation.
So now the next step, and it's an optional step, is sanding. Once the gesso is completely dried, it's got a lot of, you can see the brush strokes in it, it's got that tooth to it, which again is why this is optional. So you want like a softer sandpaper, and you don't want to put too much pressure on, obviously, because you don't want to damage the canvas beneath the gesso or strip off too much of it. So you can feel already how just that nice little patch is just nice, crisp, and smooth.
You sand way more than I do.
Really?
I just do a quick little pass, and you're like really sanding the surface.
I really like it to be just very smooth.
Oh, really? Because I
start
don't
out.
like it hyper smooth.